Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, I'm talking with Javier Reyes from Locked On Padres about the Dodgers series win over the Padres and just about the Dodgers and Padres in general. Javi and I had a really fun conversation, so let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Dodger fans. This is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, subscribe in all those places and never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time listening or watching, my name is Jeff Snider. My co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just going to be me today. Well, me and Javier Reyes from Locked On Dodgers, or Locked On Padres. I'm Locked On Dodgers. But Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans just like you, and we've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, which is probably a good thing, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. So again, please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening, and let's talk about the Dodgers. But first, let me tell you that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And as I mentioned at the top, today's episode is me talking with Javier Reyes from Locked On Padres, all about this Dodgers series win. The Dodgers beat the Padres 2-1 with a 10-2 victory on Sunday. And a lot to talk about. Javi and I got into it, and we went longer than we should have. So I'm just going to, without further ado, as they say, I'm going to jump right in and bring you my conversation with Javier Reyes from Locked On Padres. Hey there, this is the Dodgers Padres Locked On series review. I am Jeff Snider. That over there, that direction is Javier Reyes. I'm from Locked On Dodgers. Javi's from Locked On Padres. And Javi, I just want to start by explaining that legally, slander has to be untrue. And so every time you've accused me of slander, technically you're slandering me because everything I've ever said about you is true. You understand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand 100%, man. I mean, I'm just so glad that we're doing this again. It's funny because I had a brief moment, man. I had like such a flying comet. You know what I mean? It was like the Iggy Azalea of being able to finally come back and I was the one in the spotlight. And then it kind of, in fairness, it wasn't even that brief. It was for a good first half of 2021. And now here we are where I imagine you have plenty of insults prepared for the Padres first baseman, who I, of course, cannot name and what have you. But I'm still excited because I still think that while the series did not go the Padres' way, obviously, I still think it's still fun, as always, to talk Dodgers Padres. Although not too much fun to the point where there are fights in the stands. I don't know if you saw that for the Friday night game. We don't want that. But in terms of the the insults and whatnot, and just the good trash talk, I'm always here for.
Yeah, I don't prepare my insults. They just come to me. But I go into every one of these conversations with you planning on being nice to you. And then by the end, you're calling me a villain on Twitter. And, whatever happens.
I haven't done it in a while. I can't come up with anything, because at this point, if I'm so backed into the corner, I really need that big, like a big haymaker. You know what I mean? I need to come out with a big one, not just a little jab. You know what I mean? Yeah. So eventually I'll figure something out. Eventually. I assume it'll be in one game when hopefully the Padres starting pitching does really well and then something funny happens. But otherwise, it's not looking great for the Pods.
As for the fights in the stands, I've been to games in 33 major league stadiums, 29 of the 30 current ones, and 4 that are no longer in use. And people want to say it's a Dodger Stadium thing, it's a Yankee Stadium thing, whatever it is. It's just a drunk baseball fan thing. People go to baseball games, and in order to fill a stadium, you're not going to fill it with diehard baseball fans who are there for the game. You're going to have some of these casual fans who are there for the social event. And unfortunately, part of that social event is for some people getting drunk and being an idiot. And not everybody is an idiot when they get drunk. I know for a lot of people that is a lot of the fun of going to a game. You drink, you eat a hot dog, and you enjoy the game. Some people, unfortunately, their mothers never taught them how to hold their liquor or whatever. And so you get stupid stuff. But I am definitely not interested in what's the word? Putting the scarlet letter on any particular fan base, because I think it's just idiots in general, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, sometimes I think that there's a difference between the fan base and people who go to games versus just like prominent media folk that happen to cover the team. That every now and then you can see like there are some jerks from certain ones, but in terms of the fan, I think it becomes almost simple numbers, right? And we love talking about numbers with baseball, where it's just like Yankees, New York, LA/California, whatever, big fan bases. Before you make a joke about the Padres, shut up. And then you got Chicago, you got Boston. Like, you're just more likely to find those, right? And that's when it comes to the stadium and stuff. And there's obviously deeper ways to dive into this, but yeah. And I know that this weekend we also had the Cleveland situation, Yankee Stadium, with fans throwing stuff. Like, that was really bad. The Miles Straw incident, but yeah, we're definitely not in favor of all that stuff. I am in favor of the smack talk, but not of this.
Yeah,
And
for sure. And
the
that's why you and I
Padres
never come to
definitely
blows.
lost.
We genuinely like each other, while we're talking crap to each other. And, we should really focus on the positive, which is that the Dodgers won this series. And, unfortunately, they didn't sweep them. It looked like if Rob Manfred hadn't switched out those baseballs, Trey Turner hits a 3-run home run and the Dodgers have this sweep. But Rob Manfred cost the Dodgers this sweep. Can we agree on that?
Look, I mean, that's a big, if there's any like giant sweeping thing to have about baseball right now, is it looks like past few years, as someone who plays fantasy baseball a lot, I always wonder which version of baseball we're going to get. Are we going to get the one where I need to make sure I have multiple aces on my team, or is it home run fly ball? And right now, I mean, just based on I don't have too many numbers in front of me right now, but it's looking like there's a lot of hits. I mean, Julio Rodriguez of the Mariners, just to give some cross reference and whatnot, and then Trey Turner. There's a lot of, oh yeah, they deadened the ball again. And it's definitely, to me, not nearly as fun. And, you could use that as a reason. I know we're going to talk about that one game in specific that the Padres ended up picking up the W. But yeah, it seems like there's a deadened ball, but it hasn't totally affected the Dodgers lineup in the overall offensive output way as it has affected maybe specific players. That's for certain, especially because Cody Bellinger is apparently back, which is something.
Yeah. Cody Bellinger is back. Gavin Lux has had a few of those this year that he off the bat, it looked like he got it. And then it's either, on the warning track or caught at the warning track or whatever. But yeah, I don't really want to just go game by game because that's a boring, way to structure a show. We just watch those game by game, So I think let's just kind of talk about things as they come up. And you just mentioned Cody Bellinger. And Cody Bellinger is, I think you and I can agree when he's right, talent wise, he is one of the most talented players in baseball. Defensively, speed, power. He's got the arm, everything. And in 2019, he even had the batting average, and that's the only real thing he's never really been able to put together. But I mean, when he's right, he is so fun to watch, especially for a Dodger fan. But I assume even a guy like you can appreciate Cody Bellinger when he's doing what he's doing out there.
Yeah, Cody Bellinger is the one Dodgers player that I genuinely do like. I used to like David Price actually at one point, but in terms of right now, Trey Turner, it's not even a dislike, it's like a reminder of failure. You know what I mean?
Former Padre Trey Turner?
Yeah, former Padre Trey Turner. And then in terms of some other guys on the team, who am I forgetting? And then Mookie Betts is definitely probably the overall likable one, but as someone who's a lifelong hater of Boston, he reminds me of like why I hate you Red Sox that you decided to just trade him and then also trade him to the Dodgers. So it's a little bit hard for me to like him. Bellinger, I mean, yeah, I'm a meme guy. You know me. I like the Bellinger thing. He has a cool attitude about him. While his swing, I think last year and in 2022, 2022, not the year, I think one thing with Bellinger is he started almost feeling like he was becoming the bizarro first baseman of the Padres. And what I mean by that is just his swing seeming like he was trying to launch every ball into the air versus Padres first baseman, who must not be named, hitting every ball into the ground, right? And he struggled a lot with health and whatnot. He's had, I think he had a shoulder thing. You can be specific on the injuries, but, and like you said with the speed, especially for when he was just playing first base, especially for a first baseman. I know he plays center field now, but yeah, Bellinger being back is a huge thing for the Dodgers. And I think it kind of is a microcosm of why the Dodgers are so good, which is, Mookie Betts stunk out of the gate. And, Max Muncy, he's coming off an injury. He's been bad. Well, Bellinger's back. You know what I'm saying? With the Dodgers is when one guy seems to decline rapidly or be in a funk, they have other guys to bet on to not just be kind of okay, which is kind of where the Padres are in, where they just need some guys to be average. But instead, they're top 20 bats in the league. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Cody Bellinger has won an MVP before. He can slug the ball, and we're not doing game by game, but he hit 2 home runs against the Padres in the last game of the series, and he looks good. He's hitting the ball hard as heck, even when it's outs, even when it's ground outs. He really does genuinely look back. Granted, this could fall apart. Health could kick in. I get it. I understand that. He really did look bad the past couple of years, but as for what I've seen so far, I'd be willing to buy into Cody Bellinger being back for sure, and that makes the Dodgers even more of a nightmare for sure.
Yeah, one of the points that Joe Davis has made on the Dodgers broadcast several times lately is one of the big changes Bellinger has made is he still can't hit the high fastball, so he stops swinging at it. And it's amazing, like, because most of them, sometimes they're at the top of the zone, he'll get a called strike on them, but most of the time they're up out of the zone, and it's the hardest pitch for any hitter in baseball to lay off of. It's that pitch right at your eyes. It's like you can see it better than anything, but it's really hard to hit, and especially for Bellinger. But he has done a really good job lately of laying off that and saying, dude, if you want to get me out, you're going to have to come down to where I can hit the ball, and doing it that way. But like you said, the Dodgers, Mookie Betts has been struggling. Max Muncy's been struggling. Justin Turner is either struggling or just got old and is bad now. I'm not sure. He looked better on Sunday, but Will Smith hasn't really gotten it going. And yet the Dodgers have the best run differential in baseball and the best record in baseball, because that's what happens when you stack your lineup like that. And personally, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's certainly a good thing for you. I would say definitely agree. I think the only one that I think could maybe be done is Justin Turner, just because of like what you said about the age. But I mean, it's a great team. There's not really almost as much to say about this. And with Bellinger, I think that he's just a great example of, you can look up all the baseball savants. People love doing that. You and I are both on the baseball Twitter sphere. People love posting the StatCast profiles, and they like looking at, well, he can't hit the high fastball. And Alex Bregman of the team you certainly don't like, Houston Astros, he can't hit breaking balls. These guys know this. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't mean that because of what they've done in the past, that these minor things, not sweeping statistics, like they just in general swing at everything, right? Or they are terrible at defense, but like, oh, he stinks against the fastball. Oh, he's rough at, throwing from his right when trying to ground outs from shortstop or whatever. I feel like those things you shouldn't immediately assume that they're going to carry over year to year. And in the case of Cody Bellinger, now that he looks fully healthy, he looks like he's going to be a nightmare, because the fact that he's like the 7th hitter in the Dodgers lineup for now is why I think the Dodgers are probably going to continue the success. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah. You know who else has a good team, Javi?
Who's
the
that?
folks over at LinkedIn Jobs. With spring in the air, it's a time of renewal and growth, personally and professionally. As your small business grows, LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Let's talk about something you want to talk about. I feel like that whole first segment was just talking about how great the Dodgers are, which obviously is the point of this episode, but maybe you have something to say too. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fun thing about these two teams is pitching. And I think that that's an in general National League West thing. I don't even think this is a hot take. I'm not trying to act like I'm on an undisputed or first take or whatever the heck, right? I genuinely think the National League West has the best, rotations, starting pitching rotations in baseball. I think that the Padres, I personally believe Joe Musgrove is absolutely an ace, but I know there are some concerns. Maybe he's just a very, very good B+, A-, something like that. Not necessarily someone like Walker Buehler, who we'll talk about in a second. But for me, there's a lot of depth in the rotation. Sean Manaea got absolutely destroyed on Sunday, but something I mentioned on Twitter, he's been kind of due for that, The Reds hit him pretty hard. The Braves, he gives up some decently hard contact, especially with that sinker, which is still lethal at times. And with the Justice League lineup that the Dodgers had, it makes sense. When does the regression to the mean happen? That's fine. I'm not worried about Sean Manaea. I still think he's going to be a great pitcher. He's going to have those big game performances, maybe even against the Dodgers, but he's also going to have those performances where he gets touched up a bunch by, granted, some of the best hitters in baseball. So I'm really not concerned there. Hopefully Blake Snell and Mike Clevenger can come back, be really good. Snell looked really great at the end of last year with some mechanical changes. Clevenger, hopefully, comes back relatively healthy. And then Mackenzie Gore, big wild card for the team right now. Top pitching prospect in baseball a few years ago, has come back, looks confident, making his pitch mix even more that I can dive into. Or people will just go check out episodes on that. And then Yu Darvish, a little bit of a weird one, but that was a really encouraging thing. Is I have a fear that Darvish is just going to be very Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? And instead, one thing I will say about Yu Darvish is he had some really big starts for the team last year. And I know that people don't like going into the, high pressure and all that, but against the Dodgers for the first half of the season last year, had like 3 straight really good starts against them, not giving up over 3 runs in either of them. Yes, he got a little bit touched up by them for 4 later on in the season, but then the Padres were also just falling apart in general. And then he also had some really big starts against the Cardinals last year. So I do have faith that Yu Darvish can be quite good. And we already talked about Manaea and you got Joe Musgrove. So the depth of the rotation, I do genuinely believe that with the Padres. And I'm not worried that because the Dodgers beat them up, that means they're all of a sudden really bad. I'm wondering, though, with the Dodgers rotation, should I be looking into the Walker Buehler thing at all? I know that it's only 3 starts, but in fairness, just for the listeners to know, he's got a 4.02 ERA. First start, 5 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs. Second start, 5 2/3. 2 runs on 5 hits. And then the third start, 5 innings, 3 runs on 8 hits, 1 walk, only a couple strikeouts. The strikeout numbers haven't been there. Is there anything there whatsoever, even in the slightest, about Walker Buehler?
It's hard to tell at this point. April is always he definitely is a guy who has always gotten better as the season's gone on. His strikeout rate has never been this low, even at this point in the season. And so it's something to be aware of. I don't know, it might be as simple as going to Arizona and getting to face the Diamondbacks to get him right, which is what he gets to do this week. And maybe that gets him on track. I'm not worried about Buehler at this point, but it's definitely something that I'm aware of. And the reason I'm not worried is because there's no real reason to suggest that it is going to be long-term. It's not like he didn't get old, he's not old yet. His stuff isn't bad. It's mostly been a command thing, where he hasn't had all of his pitches or even multiple of his pitches working in the same game. And that seems to me like something that has more to do with the uncertain offseason and the shortened spring training and everything that, unfortunately, we hear all about that shortened spring training. But I think for most pitchers, that probably is at least part of the answer. We saw it with Julio Urias in his first couple starts. His velocity was way down in spring training, and then his first start, he was topping out like 91. Well, now he's got 3 starts under his belt, so basically it's basically we're at the point where spring training should be ending now, and he's throwing 94 and he looks good, and so Buehler, it wouldn't shock me at all if Buehler looks like vintage Buehler starting in his next start, just because we're about when spring training should have ended. And Buehler works hard. He's really into the data. And so I think that he's going to, if there's something to figure out, Walker Buehler is the kind of guy who's going to figure it out. And until I see some sort of underlying reason to really be concerned, I'm not going to be concerned.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the Dodgers. I mean, there's you need more time. And in fairness, I mentioned the strikeout thing. It's not like Buehler's a guy who gets 280 Ks a year. Garrett Cole, guys like Corbin Burns, guys like that. Like does have a good strikeout rate, make no mistake. But it's not it wouldn't freak me out if you're looking at this. All the fantasy owners that may have it, or like he only got 2 strikeouts in his last start. So I wouldn't be worrying about that too much. I guess the last thing I want to ask before I kick it over to you and you start maybe asking me things is just, what do you think of the Padres and whatnot? Is there anything that you kind of saw in this series that you think, suggests anything foreboding for because I personally feel like One, the rivalry is on hold. The rivalry is on hold, to put it nicely. One, because the Padres just aren't really in the same league. I think their pitching can actually be in the same league, but everything else, depth, offense, certainly. And also, Fernando Tatis Jr. isn't playing. And that is a really big thing for not just against the Dodgers, but everybody. There is a feeling of the lust, the magic is just a little bit gone right now. You could argue with Abrams and Gore that maybe there's some excitement there and whatnot kind of building. I'm really enjoying the Jerks and Profar sort of renaissance, but yeah, it just feels like it's not really a thing currently. At least, and granted, we're still in April, so who knows what'll happen. But what about you?
Yeah, the Padres, I agree on their pitching. It is when you look at their pitching, their starting rotation on paper, you're like, that could be a really good team. And then obviously Manny Machado is very good. I know that you don't say the name Eric Hosmer, so I feel obligated to say the name Eric Hosmer repeatedly. Eric Hosmer has been hitting really well so far this season. And it is, it has been 2 years since his last good season. And so maybe he's scheduled for a good season. And maybe Eric Hosmer is scheduled for a good season. But it does seem like, missing Tatis, it changes things a little bit. Like for one, it allows the Padres to set a record for most games in a row without an error. That's a benefit to not having Fernando Tatis Jr. in the lineup, I guess.
Whoa.
The dude had 874 errors last year.
I've had enough. He got much better down the stretch. I've had enough of the Tatis errors.
Wait, somebody on the Padres got better down the stretch last year?
Oh my God, how dare you? This is disgraceful.
Man.
This is disgraceful.
Yeah, did you see Tim Anderson made 6 errors in 4 games the other day?
I did see that. What the heck was that?
Yeah, I think it was his paying tribute to Fernando Tatis Jr.
Stop, dude.
All right,
I already said he's off limits. Leave my man alone.
I agree the rivalry is on hold. It's been on hold for some of us for a long time. I would love for it to be a rivalry. It's one of those things where, they don't even both have to be good, but they both have to be trying to be good. And that's why, I don't think the rivalry is any more on hold than it has been, because I think the Padres are a somewhat worthy foe in the division. And if anything, it's more because of the way what the Dodgers have done to build their team. That's I think Padres have potential to win, 90 to 93 games this year, it's a good team. I think I definitely expect them to battle the Giants for second place in the division, and so I think there's that potential there. But really, I mean, you can't force a rivalry even on the field. Like even if they were battling for the division, the Dodgers and Padres every year, until the fans really care on both sides, it's not going to be a real rivalry. And I do think that there's a big chunk of baseball Twitter, especially Dodgers Twitter, that insists that it's not a rivalry, but they insist it so much and so often and so loudly that they're kind of telling on themselves. I don't know, like, I really don't tweet about the Padres except when the Dodgers are playing the Padres. But also I'm different in the rivalry sense because I don't care about the Giants when the Dodgers aren't playing them either, except, unless they're battling for the division. The only time I care about the Giants is when the Dodgers are playing them or when what the Giants do affects the Dodgers. And same with the Padres and same with the Mets and the Braves and the Expos. Or the Expos in the league? I can't remember. I'm not a baseball guy, really.
I think when it comes to the whole rivalry thing, I've always believed a nascent rivalry still counts, even if it's rather new. But I will say when the Padres and Dodgers, when they were both on, so let's say 2020 and 2021, especially the first half of 2021, I know that the Giants are better, but that doesn't always mean rivalry to me. To me, it's all that extra stuff. It's on top of being division. It's the fact that you have, and I disagreed, Manny Machado yelling at Bruce Dargratto, right? You have the randomly Profar and Clayton Kershaw last year. And it's like Clayton Kershaw and Jerks and Profar too, like not the type of players that seem to be getting into stuff when those things start happening. Because then you get the other fans that say, well, the real rivalry is with the Giants. Yeah, but that's just good baseball. Those are just good baseball teams. There hasn't been that, like, to me anyway, and granted, maybe I'm a little bit more new to it, just that real heat and tension. Instead, it's just good baseball teams. And to me, I need a little bit more before we start saying that. So I think that we've seen that from the Padres on top of when they were really good and still can be good, on top of just a little bit of the chatter. And I think you're right that when the fans start getting into it even more, I think that's when the fireworks come out. And I think a big part of that is they need Tatis back. And until that happens, it's very unlikely that we're going to see that sort of thing. They need a bigger boost in their lineup.
Yeah, and you can't force a rivalry. The Dodgers and Giants have 100 years of history. They literally had one of their guys try to murder the other team's guy with a baseball bat back in the 60s.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of history there, and I think that Machado and Tatis are kind of trying to force that issue a little bit, and I think it just has to come naturally and over time. But why don't you tell me about Built Bar, Javi?
I was just about to transition to that, Jeff, because while I have, it's okay. Well, I have like a bunch of different reasons for why rivalries and this and that. I also have a bunch of reasons for what makes the best protein bar. All right. It's not just, it tastes good. That's a big piece. But here's the thing about Built Bars, right? They're really healthy for you because if you check out the macros, most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Now you might be wondering, well, okay, cool, but those are just numbers. I don't like numbers. Tell me more. Tell me more. I will tell you more. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. It's a big difference. That's a big difference. And I already mentioned the taste. They taste great, covering 100% chocolate, soft and easy to chew. But the other thing that I love about Built Bars so much is they have an incredible variety of flavors. That's what I need. I'm Mr. Variety, Jeff. All right. I need more. I like to have different stuff. All right. Maybe I'm not in the mood for peanut butter brownie. Maybe I'm not in the mood for white chocolate cookies and cream. No problem. There's like 37 other flavors that Built Bar has you covered with.
Like
my personal favorite. Yeah, that one's good. And my personal favorite is apple almond crisp. I know that a lot of people like the coconut brownie chunk one. I know my mom, she loves cherry barcia, and they even had like a gingerbread and eggnog flavor. They're probably gonna have some. What are we in right now? April. They'll have some new summer flavor that comes out. I was gonna say Easter for a second. They're gonna have some summer themed flavor probably come out too. So guys, Built Bar, they are the best protein bars on the market. And because you're listening to this episode, you can go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Remember, that is promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
Good job, Javi.
Thanks, man.
So it turns out we haven't really talked about the series actually much.
No, we have not. No,
but that's okay. If you had told me going into this series, Dodgers are going to win 2 and lose 1, I would have pointed and said, well, I assume they're going to lose the one that's Yu Darvish against Tyler Anderson. Nothing against Tyler Anderson. And like you talked about earlier, Yu Darvish, you kind of wonder necessarily, you don't necessarily know what you're going to get from him. Ever since they cracked down on the sticky stuff, I think Yu Darvish and Trevor Bauer were 2 of the biggest pitchers affected by that. Garrett Cole probably too.
James Karinchak is another one.
Yeah,
James Karinchak is in AAA.
Oh man, closer of the future right there. But so all in all, as a Dodger fan, looking at the series, it would have been nice to get a sweep, but it's kind of the Dodgers kind of dominated in the 2 games that. Definitely the first game of the series was a game I definitely expected the Dodgers to win. There was a little lingering concern in my head for Sunday's game, just because the Dodgers do struggle against left-handed pitching. Sean Manaea is very good. And Clayton Kershaw, he's been really, really good this year. And you just worry, okay, when he came back to the Dodgers, it's like, okay, we don't really know what we're going to get from him this year.
Yeah.
I expect him to be good, but and Sunday really was more of what we kind of expected from Clayton Kershaw when he came back. Was not dominant, didn't get a ton of strikeouts, but he got weak contact and he put the Dodgers in a position to win the game. If you can get 5 innings of 1-run ball from Clayton Kershaw every game, you'll take that for sure. And so all in all, the series kind of went how I expected and kind of even hoped it would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Kershaw, there's a chance that the wear and tear of the season, I know they had that controversy over the perfect game stuff and trying to make him healthy and at 80 pitches and all that stuff, which I do agree with your take after initially. I do still think that it's hilarious that I just had a reason to make fun of the Dodgers for being, because it was just, God damn it. Of course. But also in fairness, like you brought up with Rob Manfred and blah, blah, blah. I think that with Kershaw, I've always viewed the Kershaw thing as very simple. He's just not invincible anymore. This is a guy that can get touched up by people. He gave up 4 runs, and not the start against the Padres, but the previous one. It's going to happen, and we're going to see if the wear and tear of a season affects him and that he becomes a really solid number 3, right? And I guess that the upside is still a pretty good number 2. Like I said, I just don't think he's invincible anymore, but that's not necessarily an insult. I mean, this is one of the best pitchers of our generation. He's going to be a Hall of Famer in 2 seconds, aside from maybe if you get some, like, I love it when you get the biased like baseball writer. It's one of my favorite things. Like the Red Sox, the one person who didn't vote Jeter in the Hall of Fame was from Boston. Like, I enjoy that personally. I think it's hilarious when it happens. Maybe get some San Diego writer who doesn't put Kershaw first ballot. But for me, I wouldn't be concerned if I'm a Dodgers fan whatsoever, especially because the depth can make up for it. And yeah, Yu Darvish pitched really well. Only one hit. I mentioned earlier, he can show up in big games. I think that we saw basically what's going to happen for the rest of the year, right? The Dodgers bats against certain of the Padres pitching when they're not on are going to go off. It's going to happen against a lot of teams with that lineup. And also Padres, they can play close games. I think that their bullpen's going to be really good. I know that they got touched up in this series for sure, but I like Taylor Rogers. I like Robert Suarez, who unfortunately turned me into the Joker for a little bit for the opening day game, but I do like him going forward. I think I trust Trevor Hoffman, man. He said he likes Robert Suarez, so I trust Trevor Hoffman. And I think that they have really great defense, even if CJ Abrams hasn't quite evolved into what people hope he's going to be. He's been a plus defender. Ha-Seong Kim's a plus defender. Machado, Cronenworth, and then even Profar has been pretty good so far. And you got Grisham to make up for.
What about the first baseman? What's his name?
To make up for the fact that they have 2 black holes kind of on their team right now with both Will Myers, who I still got some love for, and the ground ball gremlin, who must not be named, of course, over at first base, who actually has made a couple nice scoops to start the year. I will give him credit there. In terms of defensive stuff, he's only made one real semi-error this year. It was from a nice play from Machado in the Reds or Giants series. I forgot which one. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about the whole thing. I do want to ask you, though, I know we haven't talked about specific games. The extra inning win, and this isn't us getting into the whole extra innings rule debate. We can leave that to Paul Francis Sullivan, who likes to tag me in the MLB chat every single time it happens. But
he likes the rule, right?
Point. Yeah, he loves the rule.
Sully loves the extra inning rule. Go ask him about it. That's Sully Baseball. Tell him we said you love the rule.
Please tag us that he loves the rule. You brought up an interesting point about the Chris Taylor slide into third base and Jurickson Profar with an excellent throw from the outfield. But you did bring up a point about how you're not allowed to block home plate, but seemingly in this case, you're allowed to block third base. My personal view on it was it felt like Manny was going to where the ball actually landed, but it is a good point to say that, well, he kind of basically is blocking that and it could result in some injuries. Divulge on that opinion a little bit more.
So even on like at home plate, a catcher is allowed to block the plate once he has the ball, and or if the throw carries him into the runner's path. But the only way that can really happen is on a throw from left field to the catcher, left field to the third base. Like there are 1,000 different ways Manny Machado could have caught that throw that wouldn't have involved blocking the base. How every other third baseman catches that every time is he stands on the home plate side of third base, takes a throw and slaps the tag. And, Chris Taylor probably would have been out if Machado had fielded it like that, because it was a great throw from Profar and, had Taylor beat. The one thing Taylor maybe could have done would have been, if he sees where Machado set up, Taylor tries to do a hook slide to the outside of the bag, and try to get around him. But yeah, the thing is, in the rule book, they only made the rule for home plate. You are allowed to block the base. It's kind of ridiculous. And, and so I hope my tweet didn't come across as critical of Machado, because it would be stupid not to do that. If you're, if you think it's going to help you win and it's legal, go do it. I've been critical of Manny Machado at other times when he's done things that are less legal, or at least more of a gray area. This one, though, really, it seems like an issue with the rules to me, because Chris Taylor, coming in, he's kind of defenseless because he's trying to get to the bag, and then he ends up sliding shoulder first into Manny Machado's quad. Legal. And I mean, if Machado didn't have such chicken legs, like that could have been dangerous. But man, Manny Machado's chicken legs, we could do a whole episode about that. But I don't know, like the only thing that Taylor really could have done would have been, if he saw in enough time that Machado was in front of the bag, is going feet first and spike Manny in the quad, because and not high spikes, but even a regular slide, Manny's going to come out bloody on that, the way that he dropped his leg there to block the base. And it seems like a silly oversight in the rules that you're allowed to block all the bases except home plate now.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, and it's something that I genuinely had not thought about. Again, this is not a Machado slander thing, and I just want to, because the Pods fans may come after me and say, "Oh, you're Dodger loving this. You have to hate his opinion. You have to hate everything the Dodgers do." And to be honest with you, and we did this in our season preview, I've been somewhat defensive of certain things about the Dodgers. The whole money thing, yeah, of course, that's a big deal of how the Dodgers are very good. Of course it is. Of course it helps you a lot. But also, you have to blame some other teams for not spending money. And you also have to look at the fact that the Dodgers have a really good farm system. That's why they are able to maintain and still keep doing things. That's why they don't have to worry about Corey Seager leaving, because they're like, well, we have enough assets to then trade for Trey Turner, and vice versa. Does the money play a fact into them being able to keep Trey Turner potentially down the line? Of course. But Bellinger, who had a bunch of home runs, so I have to at least try my best to not always be super mean and super smack talky, because to be honest, then you come off a little bit just silly, if being quite frank. But I think that's a great point. That's something that people should probably look into, because I don't want my third baseman getting hurt. I don't want Chris Taylor getting hurt. You don't want context like that. And I think that one of the reasons we stopped it from home plate is because it's just not baseball when you do this contact sports stuff. Is it hilarious sometimes when baseball fights happen? Of course. But that's not what I'm talking about. The reason the Buster Posey rule happened, my dad, I know, who was the least old school old person I know, somehow, he always hated the clashes at home plate. He's like, that's not baseball, right? And I don't think that this is baseball either, where potentially Manny could get hurt, Chris Taylor could get hurt, and it is something that I definitely would be curious to see other people's thoughts on it. So feel free to comment and tweet at us and whatnot. But yeah, that was the your Twitter. Every now and then, you have a tweet about Manny Machado, Padres related, that I can get along with every now and then.
Yeah, I don't tweet about Manny much. Basically just every time he does something controversial. So only 8 or 10 times a month. But it's one of the things that I like about you, Javi. Let me put it differently. The only thing I like about you, Javi, is that you are a level-headed fan. I think that one of the things is going to sound like network promotion. One of the things that the Locked On Network brings you, in most cases, is good, intelligent baseball talk and analysis of baseball stuff. And yeah, I mean, we are all fans of the teams that we do podcasts for, but with only a few exceptions, it's not super homery. I think you have hosts who can acknowledge strengths even in their rivals teams, and acknowledge weaknesses in their own teams, and acknowledge that I almost said acknowledge that your team cheated to win the 2017 World Series, but that was the one exception. That show is not so good at the level-headed, but they're nice guys. So anyway, I think we are way over time on this. So you got anything else you want to add before we finish this up, Javi?
No, I was just going to ask you what people can look forward to. I imagine Padres listeners might not want to hear it, but still. And then also, next time I believe that the Padres and Dodgers play is June 30th. So it's going to be a while. One thing about the Padres schedule for a while now is that they play Cincy, then they play Pittsburgh, and then they play Cleveland for 2, then Miami, then Chicago Cubs. So it's a while before the Padres face not just the Dodgers, but any division opponent for a while. So I think that is one thing pointed out, that it will be, and we'll have a lot more to talk about the next time our two teams face off, a little bit more evidence and whatnot to look at. But anything you want to tell the good people?
Yeah, no, yeah, it is a weird schedule. Dodgers, like you said, only play the Padres once. I think the Dodgers only play the Giants once in the first month or two of the season, and so it's a weird little schedule, but it will make things more exciting in the second half, because there will be a lot of head-to-head games with a chance to affect the division race. And who knows what the situation will be like with that. But I mean, obviously, the fact that Tatis missing half the season and he's only going to miss 1 or 2 series against the Dodgers potentially, that's a big deal. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well said,
Well,
Jeff. Well
always
said.
good to talk to you, Javi. Always good, especially after a Dodgers series win. Let's do this every time the Dodgers win a series against the Padres. And all I want to say at the end is Eric Hosmer, Eric Hosmer, Eric Hosmer, Eric Hosmer, Eric Hosmer. I think that was
And
a
I'm
haiku.
using my rally copter to outdo your evil spell that you're currently casting. I will not allow it. Just get away. Get away.
And just to see if it was a hot take you said earlier, let me do it in my Mad Dog Russo voice. The best pitching in the baseball is in the National League West. They have the best pitching staffs in baseball. Did it sound like a hot take?
That was pretty good. That wasn't too bad. The New York radio voice I never get tired of. I will say that. I could listen to Mad Dog Russo say anything.
I'm
not gonna lie, I'd be entertained.
Well, all right.
He's like, the players, the unwritten rules. You're already, if you're up by 5 runs, it's okay. But if you're up by 10, I mean, you can't. It's like, do they do that in the NBA? I love that point. Oh, well, the NBA, when you're winning by 30, they take out for the subs. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. You don't have that many players in baseball.
I can't imagine listening to enough Russo to know specific examples of things he said. Weird. That's where you and I are different, Javi. All right, I'm hitting end recording now, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you all for listening. I really appreciate it. Thank you for checking out Locked On Dodgers, making us your first listen every weekday morning. We really appreciate it. If you're not listening every day or watching, please add 1 or 2 days a month to your rotation. We would appreciate that. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I'm on Twitter at Snidog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com, and our phone number for voicemails or texts is 323-863-LOCK 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.